Okay, we'll be beginning. Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Gonzalez. I am the CPCFA Cal-IP Grant Program Manager. Welcome again. This is the workshop for the grantee reporting instructions. We'll be also at the end giving time for any questions. Just a little housekeeping reminders. Please mute yourselves until you're called upon to speak at the end for the question portion. When it is time for comments, we will use the raise hand feature to identify who wishes to speak. And then after there is no one with a raised hand, we'll go in, look through the chat to see if there's any other questions. This will be pretty short, so questions will we'll have a lot of time for any questions. Congratulations again on being selected as a 2024 Cal-IP awardee. It's very exciting. This was our first round. So we are really happy with the turnout, and we're already gearing up for our second award in the fall. So and then we'll just start talking about the grantee reporting requirements. So under the grant agreement, we have a requirement of an annual report, and you should have received an email with the annual report template and instructions. The deadline for the annual report requirement is set by the legislation for the program. And the deadline is 180 days after your fiscal year. And everyone who's attending this session today, I believe, is their annual report. First one is due June 29th. We totally understand that it's not very much time between receiving the grant awards from some received it in February and March to June, but we also need to do our own annual report to the legislator, which is due March 1st, 2025. And so we are just gathering the information of the awards that have been expended and updating the legislator, as well as posting our annual report on our own webpage for next year. There will also be email reminders that will be sent. You must have received one in the last week, but you'll probably you will be receiving another one at the beginning of June to give you another 30-day reminder of the deadline of when the annual report is due. The template is going to stay the same. And then there's also a grant closeout report. The grant closeout report is due 2 years after the date of the grant agreement when it was signed, because that's when it expires. And we understand that, our requirements for expending the money is only to report during the grant agreement time, which is 2 years. And so when it expires, we would like to have this report submitted so that we know how much money has been expended up until that point, because after the grant agreement expires, the money can be used on whatever the organization sees fit, and it's no longer required to be used for what was included in the application. And then all reports need to be submitted to the Cal-IP inbox, and that email is calip@treasurer.ca.gov. So it's pretty straightforward, but we understand that there could be questions, so we're going to open it up for any questions. Paula, go ahead and unmute yourself. Paula, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Now
there we go.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So, Andrea, first of all, thank you so very much for being so prompt to respond to every single small or big question. It has been gigantic, your support, and your peers need to know how valuable you are. So, first of all, on behalf of Mission Valley Bank, thank you. And my question specifically is, So we receive the grant and we have deployed only 30% of the funds, and the rest we were planning to do it between quarter 3 and 4. Does that matter, or do I need to deploy the full funds before I submit the report on June 29th?
No, absolutely not. So we just need to, and I'm going to go back to the previous slide because I see some people are logging in now. But no, you do. There is no deadline or there's no amount requirement that needs to be expended by the time that the annual report is due. It's just for us to know. The grant agreement is for 2 years, and you could even have funds that aren't deployed by the time the grant deadline expires. So, but we just need to update our board members, and that's why we're asking for the annual report to be submitted so
So
soon.
in that case, Andrea, let's say that I haven't deployed the full amount of the grant by June 29. Can Mission Valley Bank apply for the second grant on fall?
Yeah, so that one is a different type. So that's a little bit different. So,
Ah,
in our regulations, it does say that in order to apply for our next round, which will be announced in the fall of, or actually late summer of this summer, you would need to deploy 50% of the previous grant award.
okay, got it.
So yeah, that's the requirement for applying for our next round.
Perfect. Those two were my two questions. Thank you, Andrea.
No problem. Thank you, Paula. And Jonathan, if you'd unmute yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
perfect.
we can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for hosting this session. Just for our clarification for the annual report template, if we had received our funds early in the year, I need to check in with our team, but it was around February and March. And the deadline is June 29th. The period that we would be reporting on, like what exactly would that be?
So it would just be from when the grant money was received until the deadline of the submission. So it could be if you submit on the due date, which is June 29th, we just need to know how much money has been expended. There's also other, so I'll pull up the annual report template. We ask questions that are, we have the project information, which you should have all of this. If you don't, you can always reach out to the CalIP inbox. But we would love updates on what the grant funds have been used for and then how much. So if any of this applies, please answer it. And then you won't be penalized for any of that. Here's the annual report template. So you just want to put total amount of grant funds spent up till the day that you are submitting. And then you just answer to the best of your knowledge these questions, which are just updates on, if jobs were created, if businesses were created with the grant funds, and what you've spent so far. And if you haven't, you can just write that in there, not applicable. And we totally understand that if it's not available yet, that information, or if it's not applicable. Does that make sense?
It does. And thank you so much for going into detail. That was kind of one of our questions, and I think it's just a submission date as well. So if you were to submit earlier, that would change, of course, even if we do, disperse funds
Yeah,
at an earlier
of
date.
course. And we totally understand the questions too, so we appreciate it.
Thanks again.
Okay, so we have some questions. Where can we find the list of qualified expenses? So the list of qualified expenses it's whatever was reported, was included in the application. It's also found in the grant agreement as attachment A. Whatever was listed that the funds would be used for, that is within the grant agreement time period, funds need to be used for those things. If you don't have a copy of the application or the grant agreement, we can provide that again for you, but that's the only thing that funds can be used for, what was listed in the application. Again, after the grant agreement expires, they could be used on whatever the organization sees fit, and you no longer have to report to us. I think the next question was the same from Mel. Any list of approved expenditure categorizations? No, just what is included here in the all the information that we need is what's included in the template. If you want to add an attachment with other information, that's okay. We would love to get more information on how the funds were used, but it has to be used with what was included in the application and what was approved. And then the next question from Christopher. So if we receive funds in February 2024, we are reporting on what we have expended with those funds from February 2024 until the day we submit the form. Yes, correct. And again, I just wanted to say, any questions that you have, please just send them to the CalIP inbox. We do our best to answer right away. We will mention again, there are some projects that were strictly for working capital or for loan loss reserves, and we understand that the money could be expended the first year or the first reporting period. But you would still need to continue to report just to make sure no changes have been made. And some years, you could use all the money, but then the number of jobs created and businesses created could be updated. So you still need to report every year. Okay, seeing no more questions or raised hands, we again thank you for joining us today. Please, if you have any questions, contact us via email on the calip@treasurer.ca.gov email address, and have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you.